I would like to declare the Liverpool City Council meeting for the 25th of May officially open. I would like to remind everyone that in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice, other than the public forum section, the meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to invite Reverend Tim Booker from St. Luke's Church to read the acknowledgement and prayer and an affirmation of Council, followed by the national anthem. Could I please ask everybody to please stand?
As we gather in the presence of God, we acknowledge with respect the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and their ancestors, past and present. In his wisdom and love, God gave this land to the Cabrogal clan of the Darug Nation. I also acknowledge that this land was accessed by peoples of the Darawal and Darug nations. We affirm our hope and dedication to the good government of our city and the well-being of all of Liverpool's residents, no matter their race or creed. Tonight, we affirm our hope for sound decision-making by this council, which will improve the quality of life in our city. We express our expectations and best wishes for Australia, our nation's future, the Mayor, councillors and staff of council and all those associated with good government in Liverpool. And finally, a prayer for council. Loving Heavenly Father, as we gather together for this meeting, I ask that you'll give the members of this council a knowledge of your will for this city. Fill them with wisdom so that they make decisions that continue to improve and strengthen our city and all of the different people that make up its citizenship. May you strengthen the relationships that we have with each other so that we become a city that is famous for its love for one another. May we enjoy peace, prosperity, and a bright future because of your blessing upon us. Lord, we thank you for bringing people from all nations and creeds to Liverpool. Help us to be good neighbours to each other. Help us to encourage, love, and strengthen each other as we live together through all of the ups and downs of life. And may we all enjoy the lives you have given us. Amen.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant Southern Cross, we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this Commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless plains to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. We have no apologies and no condolences. Next item is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting.
Move that way.
Move, count, indeed, seconded. No.
Mr. Mayor, I had a constituent contact me about the committee meetings in the minutes of the last meeting. It is claimed that the councillor who moved that the Intermodal Committee wasn't present at the meeting, and it was seconded by another councillor who arrived 52 minutes later, and they just want to know, do people have to be present to confirm the minutes of a meeting?
Refer that to our Director of Corporate Services. The question is, does someone, in order to confirm the minutes of a committee, do they have to be present at the committee? Yeah.
It was moved independently at that meeting.
To confirm minutes of any meeting would require attendance at the meeting.
Yep.
So the meetings, the Intermodal Committee meeting in the minutes that we're now trying to confirm was confirmed by people that weren't present at the meeting for the whole meeting.
Okay. So that was the committee members themselves within the committee approving the minutes, not council.
No, councillors. It was councillors who seconded and moved the motion.
At the council
The
meeting.
minutes, yeah.
Okay, at the council, yeah.
And they weren't present at that meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think council should be not mindful of that, but it being a unanimous, and as Councillor Haggerty pointed out, we moved it as a whole.
This wasn't moved as a whole.
This one wasn't.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. When we do move them as a whole, yeah. Yeah. Is there anything, I guess the main thing, is there anything inaccurate in the minutes?
Well,
That need-
I know that I was at that meeting, and Councillor McNaught was also at that meeting, and we're the councillors elected onto it, so I can say that I didn't have a problem with it. It's just that it needed clarification, that perhaps in future we should be more careful with the moving of the minutes and make sure that you're present at the meetings to
Before
be
you
able
move
to
them.
move and second them, I think.
Yeah, point taken. Councillor McNaught?
No, I'm just querying that just as a point that if we move, it appears as though they were moved as a whole because the same people have moved and seconded. But does that mean that if we move committee minutes as a whole, then you need to have been to all of the committee meetings to be able to move those minutes?
Good point.
I think, if you want to go from a technicality, yes, potentially, but I think ultimately the point of accepting the minutes is about the accuracy of the minutes.
I think if the committees that we're on, we all look at those minutes, then it should be all right to move as a whole. But just asking, because if we're going to query it here, I guess it stands for everything.
Yep. No, well, I guess councils can point that out if need be.
Perhaps we should take greater consideration in moving of the committee meeting minutes. Obviously, constituents are watching and like to know that they're being moved by councillors who were actually
They're there.
present. So perhaps we should reconsider moving them as a whole.
Yep. No. All right. Anyway, point taken, Deputy Mayor. Is there anything you'd like amended in these minutes, or can we move? Because we have a move by Councillor Hadid, seconded by Councillor McNaught. The minutes of the
And
council.
I'm happy. Yeah, no, nothing, that's fine.
Yep. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. And just so everyone know, and sorry, welcome to Councillor Carneeb, who was with us online as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Yes, I have one, Mr Mayor.
Yes, Deputy Mayor. What is it?
It's NOM 05, the South West Sydney Tourism Task Force. It's a non-pecuniary, less than significant, but I will leave the room as I have stepped up into a director position to replace Harry Hunt.
No. Thank you. Noted. We'll now proceed on to the public forum. Next item is page 68, the agenda, Mayor 01, leading in good governance practices.
Sorry, Mayor. I have an urgency motion. Do you want me to do that now or after the mayor a minute?
Yeah, what's your urgency motion, Councillor?
It's in relation to Yada. So everyone knows Yada. They're based in Liverpool. My understanding is council's taken legal action, and I would like to move a motion that we defer that legal motion until councils have got a bit more information and in the hope that we can resolve this without getting the lawyers involved.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that as an urgency motion.
Yeah, and the urgency is obviously the fact that it's playing out in the courts at the moment.
Yep, happy to accept that.
And every day we don't pay a lawyer is good for ratepayers.
Yep. Any other further discussion on the matter?
Can I request that we perhaps bring it to a briefing session?
Yep. Have that done there. Yeah, thank you. And if I can just add on to it, ultimately, Yada has been servicing the Liverpool community for many, many, many years. Whether it was in waste reduction or providing people with disabilities, activity, employment, their contribution to Liverpool society has been immense, and they've been received numerous awards. And whilst there maybe have been some technical breaches and compliance issues, I think there is ways of sorting things out, and I believe going through the courts is not the way, and I think that is the will of the council, from what I understand. So I think I highly recommend the motion and thank Councillor Haggerty for putting it up.
So it's only a deferral this time, isn't it?
Yes,
It's only a deferral.
deferral and get a briefing.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, yeah, should be okay if it's only deferral.
Yep.
And are we sure we are on the safe side in this side, on these issues? Because I don't want to be seen interfering with the operational issue, you know what I mean? So it's deferral just to give a chance for the council staff and the organisation to settle things. This is fine. There's no problem with that.
Actually, this opens up a wider question. Do we have legal counsel in this meeting? Although I just had a dig at
Legal
lawyers,
counsel.
I'd like to have one in the room.
So there's no legal counsel in the room tonight.
Well, I've raised this in a previous meeting that, effectively when we conduct these meetings without a lawyer in here, we're walking on a tightrope without a safety net. So I've raised that before. I might as well go home. I don't want to be in a room where we're making very important decisions.
Well, Councillor Haggerty, I think we not all councils have lawyers that even work for them. I think
No, I mean counsel. Who's acting legal counsel at the moment? Where are they?
who's acting as once again, I guess the reality, it's up to us to pass legal motions, and as the chair of the meeting, I determine whether a motion is legal or not, and if it's illegal.
You're not a lawyer.
I don't chair, but our job is to interpret the legislation, the reams of legislation we have to go through. So I think when you look at it, Councillor, this is asking for the matter to be deferred and get a briefing on it, and hence the urgency.
And might I point out that the briefing should include some sort of legal guidance on it, and perhaps that will satisfy Councillor Haggerty
Yeah.
at the briefing.
Yeah.
I also have an urgency meeting.
Yeah, just one at a time, Councillor, Deputy Mayor, sorry. Any other further discussion regarding this? I'll put the motion. Yes, Councillor Hall.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just another point of view. Maybe at a future council meeting, we consider YADA itself. YADA stands for Young Adults Disability Association. As you stated earlier, they have been instrumental in helping young adults in Liverpool for many, many years. I understand they're looking for alternative accommodation, and previously council was looking at helping them along. Maybe we should actually look at some further information as to how we could help those people.
Can I recommend you that maybe put that up, Councillor, as a motion for next council meeting?
Yes, I could do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare it unanimous. Deputy Mayor, your urgency motion is?
Yes, I have an urgency motion. Perhaps it'll come up on the screen now. This matter is a matter of urgency, is in request so the councillors may be fully informed in time to consider budgetary matters for the 2022-23 budget. And we need information back so that councillors can be fully informed.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that as an urgency motion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As the motion will read...
Sorry, you just need a... did you want to explain the motion, or did you want to... you just have to get a seconder for the motion.
Okay.
Then you can speak for it. Anybody seconding the motion? Councillor Moon, please, Deputy Mayor, please go and you can
Sorry,
speak for you.
can we just have the motion on the screen so we can read it in completeness?
Is there more than point C, or is that...
There's E, that's it.
Just mindful of point D, I'm not sure if there's going to be enough time to get that done, but...
Well, the budgetary items should be reasonably easy to attain. And we can note the other...
Did you want to speak for your motion?
Sorry?
You want to speak for your motion?
I will speak for the motion, if you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very, very important matter for people who live in eastern Liverpool. Their lives are being seriously impacted by the intermodal development, and at present there is no public documentation and or real-world evidence that Liverpool City Council has undertaken any advocacy to other levels of government and or undertaken direct action to undertake applicable mitigation, amelioration or improvement works in the East Liverpool and in and around the impacted communities. As councillors, we have an obligation to represent all of our constituents, and because there has been no documentation on this, we do not know that there has been any work that has been carried out by council that has been applicable to any form of mitigation or amelioration for those people who are severely impacted in and around the areas of concern. And we know that council itself has told us that the project has breached conditions of consent by being larger than originally given permission for. And councillors have got a responsibility to the constituents to know all the facts, to be able to consider all the facts, and then make a considered opinion and decision on how or if, what we should do to be able to help the people in this particular area which is affected.
Thank you. Councillor Calienda?
Would it be possible to get an explanation about why this is urgent?
The explanation why I accepted it is that effectively it's in lead up to the budget. So if council was going to look at taking any further legal action and continuing with the court cases, then what would happen is that you'd want to put that in the budget for next month. So it's a matter of getting some, as opposed to just saying, you're putting it as a budget item, let's find out. Because I don't think the staff really want us to keep on adding things to the budget throughout the year. So I think that's part of the rationale. Councillor Haggerty?
Is this a legal motion?
in my opinion. I think the spirit of the motion is legal. Going through it one by one, let me read it again.
Can I get the acting CEO's advice, please?
Councillor, I couldn't answer that, and I'll have to take it on notice. Apologies about that.
I think ultimately this report is asking for information to come back to council. What is the status of the court cases? Any other further discussion? I'm happy to speak. In the spirit of the motion that you have, council's role council has a role of compliance on development applications, and we're seeing significant amount of compliance happening at the moment. And I think a project of this scale needs to have compliance done on it. And I think this is more important, doing compliance on this versus doing it on on carports at this point in time, because the impact that this is having on the community is massive.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, councillor.
I mean, it's just quite a long motion. So we're asking to come back with a report for the June meeting about the non-compliance issues, correct?
Deputy Mayor?
We need a report that puts in front of us the facts. If this development has been non-compliant in certain areas, we need to know it. It may be compliant, but we need to know the facts in order to make an educated decision. Now, this is not saying anything that we're going to do. This is asking for information.
So the need to have that by June, that's the only thing I'm thinking. This has been a long process, many years in the making, and if we're going to go through all of that, which I have no issue getting a list of non-compliances, that would be interesting, but I don't know whether a month will be enough to go through the entire project to look for non-compliances. I'm just asking, because if we're going to do it, I'd rather do it properly.
Well, we've been asking similar questions for this information for the last 12 months, so I'm pretty sure somewhere Council has got this information. In regards to the information regarding the budgetary items, that has to come back to us, because we moved a motion that the money from the Moorebank Intermodal is to be put into a special reserve. So that information should be quite easy for Council to attain within that time period. The report that comes back to us, if there are things that they cannot tell us, well, they'll tell us and tell us the reason why they can't tell us. But we've got to have something put before councillors so that the councillors become fully educated about the intermodal development, the impact on our constituents, and we don't know if there was money spent previously in some way that was addressing some of these issues of mitigation or amelioration, and that would be brought to us as well. It's just that it hasn't been documented. There's been no public documentation of it. So if we, as councillors, are here to represent our constituents and they say, well, what have we done? We just say, well, we don't know. This is a request for information.
Now, I should point out, Deputy Mayor, that the staff will do their best to get this information back for the next meeting, but not all of it will be able to achieve. So I think we just have to just to be mindful of the reality of the amount of work that's in that motion. Is any of the further discussion? I'll put the matter. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Declare the motion carried.
I've got another urgency motion, Mayor.
Yeah, what is your urgency motion, Councillor?
That as soon as practical, we get legal advice on every motion passed at this meeting tonight to ensure that it's legal, and advise councillors as soon as practical.
So just say that again slowly.
So as soon as we conduct this meeting, as soon as practical, we get legal advice to check that what we've passed is legal, and we advise councillors of the outcome as soon as possible.
Yeah, happy. I think council staff do that anyway because council can't direct the CEO to act on motions that are illegal. So that happens as a course of action regardless. So I don't think we have to, I don't see it urgent because we do it. It's going to happen anyway regardless. But if you'd like, and I'm sure the normal course of action is we get a notification in the next day or two saying that we can't act upon that because it's turned out that it's not legal. That's been the general course. Am I correct in saying that, CEO? Yeah. Okay. Next item is on page 68, Mayor 01. Might be a good segue, actually, into the item. I'd like to move the motion with an extra point that it's pending a briefing from LGNSW and OLG to councillors about what advice is available to them. Is there a second?
Happy to second that motion.
Second, Deputy Mayor.
I have some questions about exactly sort of the scope of the advice that is being sought. So are we talking financial advice? Are we talking, issues related to, say, residents contacting us? Are we talking planning advice? What types of advice are encapsulated by this motion?
I would say, generally speaking, potential legal, potential accounting on some matters. If there's something that a council feels very passionately about, that they believe they need, in the way I would see it working, if there's something you feel passionate about that you need to get independent advice because you're not necessarily satisfied with the quality of the answers that exist, that you can, through a process, which is not to be abused, but also not withholding the ability, that councils can go out there and seek that on one of those matters. But it would have to be not as a, hey, let's do it for the hell of it. It would have to be under strict guidelines of a good reason of why you need to do it.
Sorry, I'm not quite following. Would you be able to sort of be a bit more clear in terms of what that process might look like, what types of advice? For
example, let's say, a council put up a motion. I think someone recently may have done it where there was advice that it was not legal, the putting up the motion as a nom. And council staff had one particular view, and then there was another organisation or body who was saying, well, no, that actually is a legal motion. And it's like, well, what do you do? And if there needed to be a situation where there was a conflict in advice, you could say, well, hold on, I've got my advice I'm happy to put forward and to act on it. So that's maybe one example if you're another motion I'm referring to. Yeah.
That makes more sense, but I guess I'm asking a little bit about what the scope of it is. So, for example, whether a matter is operational or not could be one scope of this what this motion covers. Does it also then, you mentioned accounting, you mentioned, for example, I know there have been situations in the past where councils have had to take criminal matters off of their own bat because, for example, they were being harassed by a resident, for example, and that was at their own expense. Would that be covered in this motion?
Well, I think the motion is calling for a policy that talks about what it does. And I think the development of the policy would be to clarify those particular points. But I'd imagine, I'd be guessing that situation probably not, but I don't think the point of this motion is not about, going into specifics, about saying, let's create a policy because there is, like a company director, there is need from time to time to get advice outside of the actual organisation. And that does happen. So it is I know I've had to do it previously before, but I've had to pay for it myself. And because I was able to pay for it, I was able to get that advice. And that helped me make my decisions because the advice I had is conflicting with advice I was getting from council staff.
I guess this is where, going back to Councillor Haggerty's point before, it would have been useful to have some sort of legal counsel in the room for some guidance. But are there any conflicts with the outline of the legislation at the moment? So are there any aspects of, where this cannot be covered? So, for example, the legislation says that, council can't, or ratepayers' money can't be used to fund independent advice on certain matters.
From my reading of the Local Government Act, there's nothing that talks about that. And, the council, I think the comments have been provided, the CEO's comments have been provided regarding this matter. So ultimately, this is about, best practice and good governance, you know what I mean? And it's good governance is when you need these situations. And ideally, you hope that you never have to use these things. But from time to time, I believe there are circumstances that you do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, any other further discussion?
And this motion, if I may speak to the motion itself, and the draft policy is brought back to the June council meeting, so you're going to be given another opportunity to examine what is in the actual policy and raise any issues that you have there.
Yeah. And look, having a look at that, June's probably unrealistic, I would say. So I'm happy to push it off to the July meeting. Yeah.
So going back to Councillor Calienda's comment, I think she was asking in a roundabout way, is this a legal motion?
As the chair of the meeting, I believe it's a legal motion. And as motions beforehand, the staff have an opportunity to rule them out of order before they come to me, as has done with previous other motions. Right. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Declare the motion carried. Next item is COM 01, page 73, with Crown Lands classification and initial categorisation, with the recommendation on page 74. Move, Deputy
Happy
Mayor.
to move that way.
Seconded, Councillor Harrell. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Declare it unanimous. Next item is page 104.
Happy to move it.
Seconded.
Sorry. Page 104, COM 02, grants, donations, and community sponsorship. Moved Councillor Harrell, seconded Councillor Hadid. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Declare it unanimous. Next item is page 109, COM 03.
Happy to
I
move that way.
Liverpool City Council Sporting
I'll
Grants
second that,
Program. Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Calienda. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? I'll declare it unanimous. Next item is Corp 01, adoption of Code of Meeting Practice, page 115. I'd like to move a motion with two different. The first one is that correct me if I'm wrong, that now that the daytime trial, that meetings start at 2 p.m. If you can word that in. And when there is an extension of time, I think that's under clause 4.5, then a maximum 3-minute extension may be granted. I have a seconder.
Second that.
Second, Deputy Mayor.
Just one question. I know currently we have a maximum meeting time, so we have to be out of here by 11 p.m. Is there a similar maximum meeting time?
11 p.m.
Seriously, is that the response?
Well, technically it is. So it's because it says here 11 p.m. So I think you'd probably have to amend that to say council meeting can go no longer than 5 hours, which is what the 11 p.m. translates to. Yes. Good point, Councillor Calienda.
Because I imagine everyone is very aware that beyond a certain period of time, decision-making processes are not very functional.
Yep, indeed. 5 hours, yeah, which is reflective of that. And I've been informed that should the trial be successful, then a report will come to council to set the times and dates going forward for future meetings. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, I declare it carried. Next item is page 119, Corp 02, the investment report.
Move that way.
22. Move Councillor Hadid, seconded Councillor Harrell. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, I declare it unanimous. Next item is page 130, Corp 03, the 21-22 quarter 3 budget review.
Have an amendment, Mayor.
Councillor Harrell?
Sorry, I have an amendment.
You have a motion.
An additional motion. It's going to appear on the screen shortly.
Oh, so this is, so you're adding a point 2 and a point 3?
Just a point 2. Yes, sorry. Point 1 as it was, and point 2 as it is. It's just in place of, in addition to point 2. I think that's it. Yep.
Yeah, so point 2 was what was resolved previously, but you're just saying just have
Yes.
that reported back to council, right?
I'm basically asking for that report that was asked on the 23rd of February to be made public. It was a report that came back to council laws, but it wasn't made public. And so what I'm asking is that we put it at the end of this quarterly review. It could have gone to any of the quarterly reviews, but if it's at this one, then it explains it. Hopefully that's self-explanatory.
Yep, right.
Is it?
Yep. Yep, Mayor?
Yes, I'm happy to second that motion. I think anything that is in the interest of transparency for council is a good motion.
I got a question. Is this a legal motion?
Yes, I believe so, Councillor. I would have ruled it out of order if it wasn't, but thank you for reminding me. Right, any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Councillors, it was remiss of me. I had a mayoral minute here that I was supposed to put up, and I might just read that briefly and put it up to council. It is regarding Most Blessed Nights and Starry, Starry Night. If I can just read the mayoral minute out. In April 2022, Liverpool hosted its inaugural Most Blessed Nights street food market every weekend. More than 120,000 people descended on the Macquarie Mall throughout the month, which was transformed into a bustling bazaar full of light, colours and aromas, showcasing the flavours of local cafes, restaurants and food trucks. The event cemented our city as a must-visit destination for food lovers from all over Sydney and gave our community a wonderful, vibrant place to come together during a special month to celebrate the many cultures that make our region so unique. 27 food vendors offered a variety of cuisines, everything from Indian to Balkan, Greek to Turkish. Local businesses in the mall, including Casanova, Carpe Diem, Royalty Bakery and Bonafides, presented their signature offerings to customers, many of whom were discovering these businesses for the first time. From the 20th to the 22nd of May, one of Liverpool's most beloved events, Starry Starry Night, made a triumphant return to George Street and saw an expansion of the event into the site into George Lane and parts of Railway Street and Scott Street. Starry Starry Night brought the sights, sounds and colours and flavours of South Asia to the southwest and highlighted the evolution of this important culture within Liverpool. The main stage was buzzing with live performances by pop sensation Pav Daria, hip-hop artist and Liverpool boy El Fresh the Lion, contemporary R&B singer Lara D, Punjabi Australian singer and dancer Parvin, the youngest ever contestant on The Voice, Janaki Azwar, and progressive South Asian fusion arts dance company Bindi Bosses. Together with Liverpool public and cultural dance schools, they got the audience dancing and reflected the region's diversity. Fabrics of Multicultural Australia, also known as FOMA, partnered with council to deliver a Sari Showcase fashion show, which was a clear crowd favourite, capturing all the glitz and glamour of an international runway. This was in recognition of the crucial part fashion plays in South Asian culture. Models from diverse backgrounds walked down a 20-metre runway parading original sari, lehengi, dhoti and kurti designs from the local fashion shops that populate George Street, otherwise known as Sari Street. Through the workshops, artistic performances, children's games, lights and music, Starry Sari Night transformed our CBD streets, bringing the site to life, particularly as the festivities went into the night. There was a contemporary urban atmosphere that still maintained Liverpool's authenticity, thanks in large part to the 15,000 plus festival goers that attended over the 3 nights. The Most Blessed Night Street Food Market and Starry Sari Night are part of a series of events that aim to stimulate the city centre, and they showcase Council's commitment to delivering quality events that will not only entertain residents and visitors, but also stimulate the local economy. Both events were a true celebration of Liverpool's diversity and growth, and were in line with Council's vision of a vibrant, thriving and safe CBD, full of events that offering something for everyone. The attendance figures of both events demonstrate that our community is crying out for better evening entertainment options close to home. Council will continue to bring life to our CBD by lighting up our laneways, arcades and streets with installations and night markets in the month of August. I commend the efforts of Council staff who work tirelessly, despite the setbacks with the weather, to deliver these fantastic events that activated our beautiful city night and brought pride to our community. And they should be recognised for their amazing, wonderful work and effort. And I'd like to move that Council acknowledge and congratulate all staff involved in delivering the Most Blessed Nights Street Food Market and Starry Sari Night events. 2, write to all local businesses, vendors, performers and collaborators involved in the 2022 Most Blessed Nights Street Food Market and Starry Sari Night event to thank them for their participation. 3, write to the New South Wales Government to thank them for funding received through the CBD Revitalisation Program that supported the Most Blessed Night Food Market, and funding received through the Festival of Place Open Streets program that supported Starry Sari Night, and to highlight the success of these events in Liverpool. There's no further discussion.
I'll second that.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll jump back into the agenda. Infrastructure 01, page 161.
I'll move that motion, Mayor.
Integrated Pest Management Policy and Strategy, moved Councillor
I have an amendment to that motion.
Yeah, just let me get a seconder.
I'll second it with the amendment.
Second, Deputy Mayor, what would you like to add?
The amendment is a simple one that just says that receives a further report seeking endorsement of the policy. The report to include the comments from the constituents so that we can consider them.
From when it comes back on public exhibition?
Sorry?
So when it comes back on public exhibition?
So when it comes back from public exhibition, we see what the constituents had to say about it.
I think that happens as a course of action anyway. So
Okay.
we don't have to add that as an extra.
All right, no worries.
My only question is, this going to end the plague of mosquitoes that we're having in our city? Hopefully. No. All good.
Does it address the mites plague as well? I'm being facetious.
Likewise. Thank you very much. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Next item is Infrastructure 02 on page 165.
Happy to move
Change
that.
Policy
I'll second.
and Climate Action Plan. Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Calienda. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it carried. Next item is page 169.
Was that unanimous?
Pardon?
Was that unanimous?
It was unanimous, wasn't it? Yeah?
Yeah, can we?
Yeah, sorry. Was that... I'll put the back.
Can we just confirm Councillor Kanib's vote on that to make it unanimous?
I'm assuming Councillor Kanib is voting unanimously unless he jumps out and tells us otherwise. Or he can turn his camera on and I can keep an eye on him a bit closer. We can't hear you, Councillor.
Yes, I am voted. Thank you.
I think I heard the word yes there. Can we just check can we get a sound working, please? Work on that. Yeah, so let me just, so everyone was unanimous on the climate change policy. Yep, right. Next item is page 169, ECD 01, request to extinguish easements on council land and Elizabeth Drive. Moved Councillor Green. Seconded Councillor Moon. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? I declare it unanimous. Next item is ECD 02, page 173, the proposed closure and sale of surplus portions of Croatia Avenue, Edmondson Park. Councillor Moon.
Move to defer it, please.
No, that was the next one, I think. That's ECD 03, I think.
Oh, sorry, I missed the page. Yep.
You're happy to move this one?
Yeah.
Move Councillor Moon, seconded Councillor Harle. Are you happy to second it? Yep. Question, Councillor?
The question is that the funds obtained from the sale of these, does that still go into the Special Properties Fund?
I'll refer the question to the CFO.
To the CEO. Yes, generally we will put that into the restricted reserve, internally restricted reserve. Yeah, thank you.
Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? I declare it unanimous. Next item is page 178, ECD 03.
I have questions on this one.
Yep. Rossmore Grange Master Plan. Yes, Deputy Mayor, question?
The first question that I have, can council confirm that the land has been rezoned? Because that was a motion that was moved a couple of months ago, and I think it came back and we voted to approve the rezoning of the land. So I believe the land has been rezoned. Is that correct?
I'll refer the question to the Director.
Thank you. Through the acting CEO, the land wasn't rezoned. What we did do was make a slight amendment to Schedule 1 of the LEP, and it's in its final process of being gazetted by Parliamentary Council. We expect that to happen in the coming weeks.
And further to the question then, does that stop council from immediately starting ADA for an animal shelter?
David?
Thank you. Through the acting CEO, a development application can be lodged once the land has the appropriate approvals in place. The zoning allows that. But I'd refer that question in relation to the timing for the lodgement of a development application to Property Director in relation to the master plan work that needs to occur and the development of concept plans. But if that was all done, then a development application can be lodged as soon as the LEP is amended in the coming weeks.
Within the coming weeks?
Correct.
Well, then I would like to move a motion, if I may, through the Mayor.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
That we add a...
Well, actually, just before anyone gets ahead of themselves, I have through the CEO to the CFO in the in the budget that's on exhibition. Is there not a line item for animal shelter? I'm pretty sure there was.
To the CEO, I think there is a line item for the animal shelter, but I think that's for the construction price, and that doesn't kick in for next financial year, but I believe it's for the following financial year.
But if I was to put in a DA for my property and I wanted to zone for an airport, it'd get knocked on the head at the first thing and I'd waste my fees. And that's what council's about to do. So if we do put this DA in, I hope it gets knocked on the head and we waste our DA fee.
If you did it for what basis? For
But you're putting in a DA for something that's currently not permitted use.
Yeah. Can I, through the CEO, if I can ask the Director of Planning, is it not similar to once you have Gateway, where it becomes, when something has gone through Gateway, you're allowed to lodge a development application against it, but just cannot be determined? With an amendment of Schedule 1, does that still apply?
Through the acting CEO, yes. So a development application can be lodged. It just cannot be determined until such time as the LEP has been amended.
Yeah.
And so what I said earlier was council has approved the amendment to the LEP. It's in the final stages of the plan making process with Parliamentary Council for the LEP to be amended, and we expect the LEP to be formally amended in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so technically speaking, it can still be assessed. If it was lodged tomorrow, it can still be assessed, but just could not be determined until the plan is finally made or the schedule is amended by Parliamentary Council. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, great. So yes, Deputy Mayor, your motion was?
So the motion would be as per the book with a point 4 or new point 3 and move point 3 down, and the new point to say that council commence a development application immediately.
And can I have this considered as part of next year, the 22-23 budget? Because I think Deputy Mayor, what will have to happen is that we need to allocate this, whatever the DA costs, we'd have to allocate it in the budget.
So another question then. So what you're saying is that we have to wait until it is actually allocated into the budget, and the budget has been approved.
For the motion, for the officers to take action, the CEO take action on me, there has to be a budgetary allocation. And the reality is the simplest time to do that is next month as part of the budget after it comes back on public exhibition.
So the recommendation as it is would provide us that opportunity in the workshops to be held on. Can we change that? Workshops to be held upon the allocation on the approval of the budget.
Well, they're two different things with regards to the master plan and the DA. They're two different items. So.
Okay, point 3, that a development application be commenced as soon as possible upon the approval of the budget.
Yeah, let me put it this way. The correct way, I think, would be to say that that council consider in the 22-23 budget allocating funds for the preparation of a development application for the construction of an animal shelter in Rossmore Grange.
Well, that's already in the considerations for the budget.
Well, no, actually, the CFO is saying that it's in
for
the 23, 24, yeah. Yeah. So when the budget comes back off exhibition and a report to us next month, then they would have to include this whole motion as extra line items as part of that, as well as the community's feedback onto any other items that they have. But it satisfies what you would like to do, Deputy Mayor.
All right, okay, happy with that motion.
Is there a seconder?
It just seems completely redundant.
Second, Councillor Harrell.
No, sorry. I would want to argue against it, actually.
Oh, you don't want to second it? Seconder for the motion? Seconder, Councillor Moon. Do you want to speak against it, Councillor Harrell?
Yes. Look, I understand that we're trying to get the animal shelter up as quickly as possible, and I can understand that. But if you look at the recommendations, number 3 is note that councillor workshops will be held on commencement of the project. And that means we will probably be looking at what type of animal shelter you're going to build, what kind of facilities you're going to have in there. Putting a DA up at this stage, I think, is too early. You need to work out what you want to do there, and obviously how much money you want to spend on the project. You don't even know exactly where you want to put it within that. And that's part of the master plan. I would suggest that we stick with it as it is, go through the workshop process, and then decide what you're going to do, how much you're going to spend, and what you're going to do with it. I'm sorry, that's how I feel about it.
Councillor Haggerty?
Yeah, similar to that. It's like point 4 seems redundant to me. We're not going to build a animal shelter without submitting a DA. So we're just saying, like, consider lodging a development application. Like, of course that's what we're going to do. I think we're just putting this in here to keep someone happy, but the motion as it's written fulfills, the motion as it's written says we're getting on with it, let's get on with it. We're putting point 4 in, it's redundant, and I'd prefer if we just left it the way the experts wrote it.
Can I note a concern in terms of this? I think over the last few years, we've all recognised the value of community consultation, especially in relation to an animal shelter, and incorporating the views of the community into what an animal shelter eventually looks like. The way that the sort of motion as per what Councillor Rhodes and Amoon have moved, it kind of doesn't incorporate that into the DA process, and I really have concerns about then having to go back and reverse engineer that process, which just makes it longer, takes more money, and it's at the end of the day cost ratepayers.
Councillor Hadid?
Yeah, well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, okay, so my understanding, once you want to put a DA, you should have the plan first of all. So, do we have a plan to lodge the DA now? Any plans done by council? No plan, nothing at all. So how are we going to put a DA if there is no plan? Because my understanding, you should have the plan, go to the council staff, this is the plan, this is what I want to build, and lodge the DA. This is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Can I move a foreshadowed as per the book?
Yep, do you have a seconder? Second, Councillor Harrell. Right.
Do I have a right of reply, or we've had 3 speakers,
No.
4 speakers against.
You get the right of reply at the end.
Okay, just saying there's been 4 speakers against.
I just want to, council's a little bit of a history, because obviously this has been going on for a while. Council number 1 resolved to reclassify the land at. The council went to reclassify the land at Rossmore Grange, probably a good year plus ago, and that's now happened, and that's almost finalised, and the report came back to council a couple of months ago. Doing a master plan, I know it says here, it's potentially a year's worth of work, which is, council taking a broader view of what can be done in the area. If council's committed to building an animal shelter, it does have to start the DA process to identify location, size. In the long-term financial master plan, which this council approved only last month, it does have a line item there for the construction of an animal shelter. So work has been done on this project. I think what the Deputy Mayor is trying to achieve is just to make sure that it does continue on. So I don't actually see a conflict in what anyone is trying to do here. Both points are valid. But ultimately, if you do want to start the process for the animal shelter, the DA process may not start in July or August. It may start towards Q3, Q4 next year, which would still require a budget allocation. So I don't think there is a conflict. But all I ask councillors is that, as the CEO and the CFO have stressed to us, and the Director of Corporate Services, that I'd put the budget in and let us go, as opposed to chopping and changing or making amendments to the budget throughout the year.
Well, look, Mr. Mayor, I want to make my position crystal clear. I'm in favour of this project, and I want to be happy as quick as possible, as quick as well. I want to push for it, but it's the only things, because I have no plan now. So how am I going to put at the if I have no plan? So my advice to Councillor Rhodes, if he can ask like for a workshop session, just sit down and put a plan, how we going to do it, you know what I mean? So I don't know if you like to take my advice or not. So.
There is note that a councillor workshop will be held on commencement of the project. So the workshop is still in there. So I don't need to have to put that in there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But how are we going to put it in if you have no plan?
Consider in the budget funds for...
Councillor Hadid, so I think the point is about putting this motion is to spend money to start developing a plan. You need money to start designing a plan and engaging an architect and so on and so forth. All right, so yeah. Ultimately, we're all trying to achieve the same thing here. It's about semantics.
No. That's why we're doing this report.
So can someone turn off their microphone so Councillor Goodman can...
So in order to do a development application, we need to know the exact location of the animal shelter. Do we know that?
No.
Well, I think councillors and council officers, when putting the reclassification in and adding as a Schedule 1 use, I don't know how much work was done prior to that, except identifying, so maybe this should have been started earlier, the master planning process. Because it sounds like to me now that it's going to delay the process of where this goes. So...
No. There's no point doing a master plan if you don't know what's in the scope of that master plan. Until it was clear that that the department would approve an additional use of an animal shelter, then you don't plan for an animal shelter. So now that we know there's going to be an animal shelter there, we go off and do planning. It's an 82 hectare site. Then we work out, based on a whole bunch of constraints, where it can go, where it can't go, what else we want to put there and up here and down there, and we go, here is the best place for it. We all agree. We look at the designs, how many animals do we want there? Do we want it how modern do we want it to be? Is it just going to be for animals in Liverpool or elsewhere? It's going to have any other services. Therefore, it needs to be this big and have this design, and then we put a DA in. That would be my understanding of the process. We're sort of putting the cart before the horse, or the cart before the dog. Cat. Animal shelter. Someone found that funny. Thank you.
Do we need a master plan to allocate space for the animal shelter?
It says in the report here on page 181, councillors, that preliminary investigations have been conducted with potential sites talked about. So...
Mr. Mayor, can I ask my colleagues, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Calienda, if they agree with me just to defer this item for next meeting for more consideration?
Yeah. Well,
I thought one of the issues at play here was that we wanted to, get the ball rolling as quickly as possible. If we defer it, we're waiting another month.
yeah, I think council on that this won't be action until the budget is approved next month, regardless. So ideally, this
that's
motion,
the point.
regardless of point 4, it should go up next month as part of the budget process. So I would agree with Councillor Hadid if we can defer this, deal with it as part of the budget because we're allocating money. It's significant money. It's not a couple of dollars, and we can hit it all up then.
I have a question through the CEO to the Director of Planning. If we do defer this motion, is there any functional impact on the progress or on the work of the team?
David Smith.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Acting CEO, no, not in relation to the work of the strategic planning team. If I can just clarify, this report was making a recommendation to staff to commence the master planning process and to allocate appropriate funds. I would support a deferral in relation to the funds so it's considered properly as part of the budget. In relation to point 4, if that is to be kept in, may I suggest to councillors that is reworded slightly, that simply says considering the 2022-23 budget funds to commence a development application process. And I think that would clarify matters for councillors.
Would it help if I amended my foreshadowed motion to read that the recommendation be deferred until June in consideration with the budget?
Is the Deputy Mayor happy with that?
Is that not the same as the first motion? A foreshadowed motion is supposed to be different. I consider it the same motion.
I think a deferral. So, Councillor Kennedy, you're effectively moving for a deferral. Yes. Yes, I think it's a different versus points 1, 2, and 3.
Well, no, I prefer the first motion because it is saying that nothing is going to be done, but it's to be considered in the 2022-23 budget, funds to commence a development application, and by processing a development application as soon as possible means that you have that moving and you're not going to wait for the master plan and then actually start on the DA process. You're looking for 8, are they asking for here? Something like 8 hectares out of 85 hectares. It's not too difficult to decide where the animal shelter is going to go, if the animal shelter is to go in this particular area. So, to me, you can spend as much time as you like working out all the other things that you might like to put into this, but it should not delay that animal shelter. This animal shelter has been on the books for how long? For the whole of the last 5 years, and we haven't proceeded with it? That's inexcusable, absolutely inexcusable. So I believe that the motion above has it in place so that it will proceed forward. For the matter to be deferred for what? Let's stick with the first motion.
Well, consider that the right of reply. So we have the motion, and then we have 2 foreshadowed motions.
It's just a question.
Is it just one? Just one foreshadowed motion?
There was, there only is one foreshadowed motion.
I
Yes.
amended my foreshadowed.
Yeah, sorry, there's only one foreshadowed motion. Thank you, Councillor, for clarifying that. Is it a question? Because
Yes.
we kind of close off the debate.
Yeah, no question. Is this a legal motion?
Huh?
I'm going to keep asking it.
Yes, it is, Councillor. All right, I'll put the I'll put the motion, which is point 1, 2, 3, and 4, as moved by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? 4. Councillor Carneeb?
Yes.
Are you for or against?
4.
4. All right. I declare the motion carried. Next item is page maybe someone can turn off the microphone. No worries. Next item is ECD 04. Proposed Gurner Road closure, sale up in Austral. ECD is page 184.
So, Mayor, I'd like to move this to get deferred for next meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Move Councillor Goodman, seconded Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Declare it carried. We now have the committees.
Can I move them as a whole?
I second that.
We have a problem with that, don't we, councillors?
No, that was still you can pull out the
The
item
youth
you
council
like.
is
You can pull it
Nathan
out.
was the only one who attended the youth council.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes.
Without
Kellyanne.
without legal advice, we don't know whether that's appropriate or not. And convention up until this point, over however many years, has been that we are allowed to move them as a whole. So I moved them as a whole.
I would, in this matter, because I would accept the convention for this point. However, happy to have it clarified.
I'd like to point out no councillors were in attendance for the Liverpool Sports
Then
Committee.
vote against it.
Just
Look, I'm not going to get caught up on the technicality, but I'm happy to have this looked at afterwards because as a chair of this meeting, we've gone through a convention. It's the minutes before councils of committees are just receiving them. It doesn't have any bearing on the effect of the movement of council. I don't see, because then, for example, on your point, Deputy Mayor, if no councillor was at the meeting, how do you move the motion? You know what I mean? And if only one person in the committee only has 2 people on it, 2 councillors.
Good point. The question that was put to council, do you have to be in attendance to move the minutes? The answer was yes. Just saying.
Yeah.
Can we get legal advice on that?
We'll get some meeting advice, but I'm going to accept Councillor Caliendo's point that we move them as a whole with the seconder,
I'll second
Councillor
that.
Green, right? And we will go out there and get clarification, proper clarification of this in writing for guidance going forward. Deputy Mayor, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimous.
Can I be recorded as voting against that?
No worries.
For safety's sake. I'll wait for the advice.
No.
No, that's
No, it's all right. Next item on the agenda, questions with notice. Does any councillor have any issue with any of the questions that are before them? QW1, QW02?
No, I thank the council for their very precise report back on that, and at least council is providing the advice so that it is a public document that people can look up to see that council did attempt to make some legway with the issue with the land there at Voyager Point. So I thank council very much in providing that report.
Thank you. Councillor Haggerty?
These reported in the... so it says here that we still have 5 buildings in Liverpool that have flammable cladding on them. I'd be pretty concerned if I lived in one of those. For our sake as councillors, is that being reported to us in any way, and should it, perhaps the legal affairs report, I don't know. But I'd like to get a regular report on sort of these numbers and what action's being taken, and would like to see it zero and as soon as possible. So, was that a question or was that a motion? Do we know if these are being reported to councillors in any of the existing reports we receive, either at council or through the councillors' update every week?
I'll just check. David Smith?
Thank you, Council. Through the Acting CEO, I'll need to confirm. I don't believe they've been provided to the councillors through the CEO update. I don't believe there's an issue with doing that. And I'll also need to take on notice whether the matters referred to with our legal department, they should be, but I'll confirm in the legal affairs report that is reported to council quarterly.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll move a motion to that effect, that councillors be provided an update on the status of buildings with combustible cladding as part of the legal affairs report. Happy with that?
No,
He's
it
nodding.
becomes a legal and compliance report.
Whatever it's called.
Is that a legal motion?
Thank you.
I was thinking about it because it ventures on the point of operational, because if we're going to start going into every compliance matter, because the question you have to ask is, how is this as a compliance matter more important than other compliance matters, and why do we get reports on these compliance matters, not other compliance matters?
If we had a Grenfell Tower incident in this city, I don't think people of Liverpool, people of Sydney would be worried whether it was an operational matter or not. They'd be worried as councillors what we did about it.
Yes, councillor, but it doesn't answer the question whether it's a legal matter or a legal question or not. But then there are other items of compliance that have safety matters associated with them. So yes. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Second to Councillor Green. No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? She's still in the room. That was carried unanimous.
Can I just get you to read that motion, Councillor Haggerty? I think the word should be combustible, not collapsible. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just noticed
I don't
that.
care about the collapsible cladding. It's the combustible one. Although they're both dangerous.
I know you like timber buildings, so they're probably more
Yeah.
collapse.
Sorry, I just wanted before it went through.
Next item is NOM 01, page 259. Councillor Haggerty.
Yeah.
Stronger Community Committee.
Originally, when I put this up, just as per the motion, that as part of, we agreed last month that we would review the committees. As part of the review of those committees, I'd like this committee to be one of the committees that we consider.
Yeah, so is point 2 then a bit too detailed then? Because it's saying establish a charter, but we might not set it up. So I'm mindful of staff wasting their time and it's not.
No, so point 2, we put if
council
Yeah.
as part of its review. So if we just put in before the word establish, if we can put in there following council's review, if it decides to progress with this committee,
that the proposed committee includes blah.
and then the rest, whatever is there.
Can I ask a question? Is the review coming back to council?
I think it was August. I think we were aiming for the review of committees.
So this is to be a part of that review, you're saying, to be considered in that?
Yeah, I think we have an armistice on committees.
We're going to have a committee for the committees. Oh, come on. And this...
We should have a committee that manages the committees.
I think he just lost my vote.
All right. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Green, any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous.
Wasn't unanimous.
She was for it. Deputy Mayor was for it. Were you against it? No, she was against it. Okay. Ununanimous. Next item is page 261, NOM 02, stormwater drainage and preventative maintenance considerations. Councillor Harrell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's fairly self-explanatory. If you've read through it, you'll know what I'm getting at. We have problems in the rural areas with flooding, and it happens every time we get the slightest amount of unusual rain, and the roads tend to be blocked. And I think that has a lot to do with, unfortunately, lack of maintenance, both from a council point of view and also from the respective landowners. They're not doing what they should be doing. I don't think council is doing what it should be doing on a regular basis. So this notice of motion asks council to provide a detailed report on A, the current drainage maintenance programs including rural areas, B, current levels of internal resourcing including staff, plant and equipment that focus on drainage maintenance, C, 3-year spend on external contractors involved with drainage maintenance, and D, what are the necessary expertise and equipment needs in dealing with flood-related matters in the Liverpool LGA, and E, what strategies are exercised to minimise the effects of flooding on our road network, and finally, what initiatives can council consider as well as cost to improve this essential service. And I note the acting CEO's comments that this will take some time to provide, and I thank you for that information. And the notice of motion was actually put together with consultation with the acting CEO, and I'm happy that he's provided that information rather than me go off, emotionally upset and all of that. This has been put together, in my opinion, very well. Thank you for the efforts.
I'm happy to second the motion.
Move Councillor Howe, seconded Councillor McNaught. Discussion. All those in favour, please. Any discussion? The motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it carried. Next item is NOM 03, page 263. Councillor Haggerty.
Yes, so I was going to move it with a slight amendment.
I think the first point is getting it done by the next council meeting is probably unrealistic.
Ambitious.
Ambitious.
So I'm happy to take a suggested date. What are we? June, July, August? I'm feeling generous.
The acting CEO comment does mention July,
July.
but August was also acceptable.
Well, I'm going to add an extra bit to it, so we'll make it August. This came basically verbatim from a motion from Strathfield Council. I will give them credit. A good idea is a good idea, wherever it comes from. But if we could just include that in the motion, so that council direct the CEO to draft a policy consistent with the following principles for consideration. Where are we putting Strathfield Council? That council direct the CEO to consult with Strathfield Council in drafting a policy, blah, 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 blah. Up the top.
We need to change at the next council meeting.
To August. As I was saying, this is something that...
Just one sec. Seconder.
Ali Karnib, yes.
Seconder, Councillor Carneeb.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Carnib. This is something that came up at Strathfield Council. They've worked on that for a while in the background, so if there's any sort of grey areas or questions we have, I'm sure they'll be happy to help. This is all about transparency, accountability, something that people voted for on Saturday. So I think that's something that we should vote for as a council tonight. If we meet with someone, people should know about it. Sunshine is the great sanitizer or something. I'm a bit fluey at the moment, but I guess what I'm trying to say is transparency is good. And when people know what we're doing and when we're doing it and where we've done it, that's a good thing.
Can I just make a suggestion that you might like to consider in this particular motion? That previously, a long time ago now, probably about close to 10 years ago, this council used to hold a meeting where developers would present their concepts and pre-DA in some cases, sometimes it never came to fruition, to a meeting that councillors were present at. And I thought that was a very good idea because it gave councillors, although not having any influence on it whatsoever, but it helps for councillors to know the possibilities that are out there for our local area. And I found that when that was done, it enabled councillors to have a greater idea about our local area and the ways that it could be developed in the future. Can that be included in this, Councillor Haggerty?
I fail to see the connection, but it sounds like a great idea, and perhaps you can put that up at the next council meeting as a notice of motion.
Well, it could be considered.
No, I think this is about something sort of slightly different.
Well, it's registering developer applications, or I don't know what you include, a person, organisation seeking to lobby Liverpool Council's employees or officers.
Yeah, so if you want to put up your thing about having meetings with councillors to show concept designs, I think that's a good idea. Separate issue, you can put it up as a motion next month, but if they were to do that, and if this was to pass, then that would be recorded in the register. It's a pretty different issue.
I'll leave it till next month, thank you.
We're checking the legality of the motion, so excuse us for a moment.
So do we need to record that question for everyone? Is this motion legal?
Well, I thought that all these motions were checked before they went up.
Yeah, well, the part that I'm pointing out here is the budgetary consideration required for this. While it's only calling on a policy, so it technically is legal because it's only asking for council to do a report, but there's got to be mindful of the practicality and how this actually gets implemented. Talking for multiple council officers to be involved when discussions are happening. Do you have to have, for example, when an applicant calls when they finally get hold of the planner assessing their application, does that planner then have to get another person on the phone to make sure that there's multiple people present, and where does that resource come from? So I think there's a lot of practical elements with regards to that. So we're just discussing whether if there are financial implications.
Well, I think that'd be all part of the consultation with Strathfield.
Yeah, well, and it says it there in the financial implications. So.
And we say, we're talking about that. Best practice would be the ICAC guidelines, right?
Yeah.
And consulting with Strathfield as well.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I just point out that as long as I agree in spirit with the spirit of the motion, just ensure that it can be practically implemented. That's my only concern, because that's it. Any other further discussion?
Oh, just a question, Mr. Mayor. A question to Mr. Smith, through the acting CEO. Where David, as I know, any councillor lobby on behalf of his constituent, it goes on the record. Is that correct?
I'll refer that to David Smith.
Thank you. Through the acting CEO, Councillor, are you able to just clarify that question? Sorry, it was quite hard to hear.
I said any lobbying on behalf of my constituents, it goes on the record. Is that correct?
Correct, Councillor. So if a councillor asks an inquiry about a planning matter, it usually comes through to me or the manager or to councillor inquiry. It gets registered in our document management system, and the response is saved in council's document management system. So yes, we do that now.
Okay. So do we have the same practice when it comes to individual lobbyists or firms or organization?
Through the acting CEO, usually if any developers, applicants, etc. wish to meet with council staff, they put in a written request to council to meet, the reason for that meeting, and under council's code of conduct, we do at the moment have 2 staff attending meetings with applicants and developers, and that's there to make sure that what's discussed is appropriately documented. So we do this. I believe this motion is seeking to formalise current practice largely, but that will be worked out, as I understand, through the actual policy that will be reported back to council.
Okay, thank you. It seems to me we have like a very close practice at the council now. So what we have to do, if you can amend your motion, Councillor Haggerty, in a way, what it not covered, to go through it.
Yeah, so it's formalising some processes that are already in place, and I think there's a request here that makes it easier for people to access any of that information.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, we can deal with that when the policy comes back to council.
But there's a public register. So at the moment, it's being sort of held in the document management system. This team's attending meetings, and there's an email here and that. It's just that there's one register where all this stuff is held, which is current process, and that register is publicly available. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Next on page 265, NOM 04, John Jewel Clark, Deputy Mayor.
Through the Mayor, this one is very self-explanatory.
Yep. Moving the motion?
Yep.
Do we have a seconder for the motion?
Anybody going to...
Councillor McNaught. Does anyone have any issues with it? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Next item is page 268. Give the deputy a moment to leave the room. NOM 05, Southwest Sydney Tourism Task Force. I'm happy to move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McNaught. Any discussion?
Does, as it is a notice of motion in the name of Councillor McNaught, does it not become moved by Councillor McNaught?
Oh, sorry, I thought the deputy mayor wrote it. My apologies, Councillor McNaught. Moved, Councillor McNaught.
All good,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
pointing that out. All right. All right. So move, Councillor McNaught. I'm happy to second it. Seconded. Councillor Kennedy. On the discussion, put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Can somebody please get the deputy mayor? Next item is page 271. NOM 06. Councillor Calienda.
Yes.
Moving
so
your motion?
I move that, there's a slight amendment to the motion. I move that we defer this to the June meeting, but receive a report with the comparable policy for neighbouring councils.
And the legality of it.
Yes.
Yep.
And the legality of it, because it seems to me the acting CEO.
Just one moment. Second, are you second that, Councillor Hadid?
Yeah, to defer it, yes.
Yep. Okay, great.
So just to respond to that point, I believe the legality of the motion has been checked. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it has. It has been checked. So that's already been taken care of.
But Mr. Mayor, just we have to make sure when it comes back before council, we should take into consideration the acting CEO comment in regard of the council leave management policy, which is an operational policy of council endorsed by the CEO. So I want to make sure I don't want to get myself involved in illegal,
Yep. Well, between
I don't want to
between
my role as member of the governing.
Between myself, the staff, and Councillor Haggerty, we'll make sure all motions are legal coming to council.
Well, thank you, Councillor Haggerty.
Is this a legal motion?
Great. I'll put the motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Sorry. Just captured in the report that's coming back, I would love to know what happens in the other councils as well. And this may not be necessary to ask, but I would also like to know how within our own council employees, regardless of memberships, how this picnic day, day in lieu, day off is written into their contract or their work agreement. If I could get that back as part of the report as well, please.
As Councillor Calienda, are you happy with that? Yep. Councillor Calienda, if we can just capture that.
Can I just speak to this one?
Yep. Councillor Haggerty.
Essentially what I believe Councillor Calienda is asking to do here is enforce the award, the legally negotiated award. And I think the intent here is to, as a result of that, achieve some budget savings. So we can get into a sort of an argument about what's fair and what's not fair. This is something that's been, negotiated with employer and employee representatives as part of an award. It's been agreed to, it's been in place. It's simply enforcing that award. So,
Councillor, can you put on your microphone, please?
Won't all those details come back with the report?
Correct. Okay.
So those financial details will come back with the report as well, because the financial implications in the CEO's comments kind of write off any savings, but can we get that brought back in the report again?
Yep, the financial
Thank you.
benefits. If any.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's no problem.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Fantastic.
Any other further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Declare it unanimous. Next item is page 274, NOM 07. Trial of potential pothole recognition technology. Councillor Calienda.
Happy to second it for you, Councillor.
I very much appreciate your sentiment.
Yes.
Look, I welcome anyone who will second this motion. Obviously, potholes have been the topic of extensive discussions over the course of the last few months, and I thought, why not look at ways that we can be smart about it, and what we can potentially, make advantage of technology in order to address some of the challenges that we face, because they're not going anywhere. If anything, as we experience, further impacts from climate change and weather changes, it's only going to exacerbate it. And at some point, we have to be responsible and go back to ratepayers and say, here's how we're being more effective with your money, rather than just, patching up the same road time and time again. So I will move the motion as per the book.
Thank you. Moved. We have a seconder, Councillor Hadid. And I had, I have spoken to the Minister for Customer Service regarding this, and he's letting him know that if there is a trial happening at Liverpool Council, more than welcome to be part of that trial. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Next item is, and the last final item, confidential booklet, pay CONF 01, page 499.
Move the recommendations.
Moved Councillor Hadid, seconded Councillor Howell. I have questions, but I'll ask those questions offline. That's all right. I'll put the motion. If there's no discussion, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Against, declare it unanimous. Now I have to read the motion out. Yep, it's on there already. Lovely. All right. That being said, any general business, anyone? Anyone rush to get home? I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience.